Truestory. When the school king falls for the girl. No one ever noticed. Everything changes. A story of unexpected love, hidden worth, and a world turned upside down. Nobody ever walked into Westfield High School the way Daniel Hayes did. The doors would swing open and the whole hallway seemed to take a breath and adjust, like the building itself recognized him. Lockers clicked open in greeting. Voices called his name from every direction. Shoulders bumped his with easy, familiar warmth. He smiled at everyone. He waved at just the right moment. He said just the right thing. He had been doing it for so long that it no longer required any thought at all. That was the part nobody knew. That behind that easy smile, Daniel Hayes was running on empty. 3 minutes after he arrived, Naomi Elliott walked through the same doors. The hallway did not change. Nobody turned. Nobody called her name. She moved through the crowd the way water moves through sand, quietly, without disturbing anything. She found her locker, turned the combination from memory, pulled out her books, and walked to homeroom. She sat in the third row, second seat from the window, opened her notebook to a half-finished pencil sketch of the ceiling tiles, and disappeared into herself. To everyone around her, she was simply not there. And that, for Naomi, was exactly the point. They had gone to school together for 2 years without ever truly seeing each other. Daniel knew her the way you know a piece of furniture, peripherally, without detail. Naomi knew Daniel the way everyone knew Daniel, which was to say she knew the version of him that performed for the room. Neither of them had ever considered that there might be something more on the other side. The day it changed started as an ordinary Tuesday. The regular English teacher was absent. A substitute arrived with a clipboard and a plan to rearrange the seating by last name, which meant Daniel Hayes and Naomi Elliott ended up at the same table in the back of the room. Daniel pulled out his phone. Naomi opened her novel. The substitute, a cheerful older man with kind eyes, decided to begin the class with a warm-up question he wrote on the board in large letters: "Name one thing you genuinely care about." He asked for volunteers. Silence. Then he began pointing. One by one, students gave their answers: sports, music, their families, their futures. He pointed at Daniel, who had been half reading a message on his phone. Daniel looked up. His mouth opened. And then, for the first time in a very long time, he had nothing to say. His mind went completely blank. He could think of a dozen things he was supposed to care about: basketball, his grades, his friends, but caring about something and genuinely caring about something are two different things, and in that quiet moment, Daniel could not find the line between them. He sat there for 3 full seconds, which felt, in a silent classroom, like an hour. Then from beside him, without looking up from her notebook, Naomi spoke in a low, clear voice. "He cares about being understood," she said. "Most people do. They just forget to say it out loud." The substitute lit up. The class laughed, not unkindly, more with the warm surprise of something unexpectedly true. The moment passed. The lesson continued. But Daniel turned and looked at the girl beside him, really looked at her, for the first time, and felt something he could not immediately name. She had not looked at him once. She was already sketching again, her pencil moving in quiet, precise strokes across the page. He did not even know her name. He asked around that afternoon. It took longer than it should have. 3 people said they were not sure. 2 more said her name was Nicole, or maybe Nina. It was Marcus, his best friend since 5th grade, who finally pulled up the class list on his phone and said, "Elliott. Naomi Elliott." Daniel repeated it quietly, like he was checking whether it fit. It did. He found her the next morning in the school library, which was something he had to ask a teacher to help him locate, because he had genuinely never been inside it. She was in the very back corner, at a small table by a window, with a novel, a notebook, and a cup of tea she had somehow smuggled in. She looked completely at home. He felt completely out of place. He picked a book off the nearest shelf without reading the title, sat down at the opposite end of her table, and pretended to read. She gave him one slow, measured look over the top of her novel. The look said, "I know exactly what you are doing, and it is not fooling anyone." Then she went back to reading. He lasted 12 minutes before he left, feeling more awkward than he had felt since he was 11 years old. He came back the next day. And the day after that. On the fourth visit, she closed her book, set it flat on the table, and looked at him directly. "You are going to keep coming back until I talk to you, aren't you?" she said. It was not a question. "Yes," he said. She nodded slowly, as if this confirmed something she had already suspected. "Why?" she asked. He thought about giving her the easy answer, the charming answer, the Daniel Hayes answer. Instead he gave her the true one. "Because you said something real in that class," he said. "And I cannot remember the last time someone did that near me." She studied him for a moment with those calm, steady eyes. Then she said, "That's almost a compliment." And they talked. For 45 minutes, they talked. She asked him questions that nobody asked, not about the team, not about the game on Friday, not about what college he was thinking about. She asked what he thought about when he was alone and not trying to be anyone in particular. She asked whether he had always been this way or whether it happened gradually. She asked what made him laugh when nobody was watching. He fumbled through his answers. He started sentences and lost them halfway. He said two things that were wrong and then corrected himself. She was patient with all of it, and that patience was somehow harder to handle than impatience would have been. Near the end, she showed him a sketch from her notebook, a drawing of the school hallway from the perspective of someone standing still while everyone else moved. He looked at it for a long time without speaking. He did not try to sound smart about it. He just said, "This is the loneliest thing I've ever seen." She looked down at the drawing. "Yes," she said quietly. "That's what I was going for." He handed it back carefully, like it was something that could break. Days passed. Then weeks. They met in the library most mornings. Sometimes they talked the entire time. Sometimes she read and he sat quietly, and that was enough too. Marcus noticed the change first. Daniel was turning down invitations. He was arriving at lunch with a book he had borrowed from Naomi. He was using words that did not usually come out of his mouth. "You're different lately," Marcus said one afternoon. "Better different or worse different?" Daniel asked. Marcus thought about it. "Just different," he said. The school started to notice. That was the part neither of them had prepared for. Someone photographed them talking in the hallway between classes and sent it to the group chat with a string of question marks. A girl at the popular table leaned over to another and whispered something while looking in Naomi's direction, and they both laughed. Naomi saw it. She said nothing. But she pulled her sleeves a little further down and walked a little faster. That night, she opened her sketchbook and did not draw. She just sat with the blank page for a long time. The harder moment came at a school assembly. Daniel was called to the stage for an award, something to do with leadership, his name announced to the whole school with the warmth of someone very well liked. He walked up, accepted the award, smiled the right smile, said the right words. On the way back to his seat, he scanned the auditorium. He found Naomi in the far corner, sitting alone, watching him with an expression he could not quite read, not proud, not impressed, just watching. Their eyes met for a moment. He looked away. He sat back down with his friends. The noise folded over him. He did not cross the room to her afterward. She was already gone when the assembly ended. The next morning in the library, she was there, but something was different. She was pleasant. She answered his questions. She did not close herself off. But there was a small, careful distance that had not been there before, and he felt it the way you feel a drop in temperature before you see the clouds. She had not said a word about the assembly. She did not need to. He understood that he had made a choice without realizing it, and that she had noticed. He thought about it for 2 days. He turned it over and examined it the way she might examine a drawing she was not happy with. And he came to a conclusion that surprised him with its simplicity: he had been a coward. Not dramatically, not in a way anyone else would even name, but he had stood in a room full of people and chosen the comfortable thing over the true thing, and she had seen it, because she saw everything. On a Thursday, at lunch, Daniel Hayes picked up his tray and walked across the cafeteria. It sounds simple. It was not simple. The cafeteria at Westfield High was not just a room where people ate lunch, it was a map. Every table had a meaning. Every seat said something about who you were and who you were not. The table he was leaving was the center of the map, and the table he was walking toward was at the very edge, by the window, with one person at it. He was aware of every step. He was aware of the silence that moved through the room the way a current moves through water, invisible but real, felt by everyone it passed through. He did not look back. He reached Naomi's table and set his tray down across from her. She looked up slowly from her book. Her expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened. "I'm sorry about the assembly," he said. "I should have come over." She held his gaze. "Why didn't you?" He did not reach for an excuse. "Because I was a coward," he said. "I'm trying not to be." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached over and slid her book to the side, making room on the table between them. That was all. No speech, no forgiveness declared, no dramatic moment. Just space made available. He sat down. They ate lunch. The cafeteria watched and then, slowly, went back to its own business. Neither of them commented on any of it. That afternoon, Priya, Naomi's only close friend, a sharp, watchful girl who had been suspicious of Daniel from the beginning, cornered Naomi by the lockers. "What are you doing?" Priya asked. "Having lunch," Naomi said. "With Daniel Hayes," Priya said, in the tone of someone stating an alarming fact. "With Daniel Hayes," Naomi agreed. Priya stared at her. "Is he good?" she asked finally. Naomi thought about it. "I think he's trying to be," she said. Priya was quiet. "That's not the same thing," she said. "No," said Naomi. "But it's where the good ones start." The school's homecoming weekend arrived like a season. It was everywhere, in the hallways, in every conversation, in the way the building itself seemed to tighten with anticipation. Daniel asked Naomi if she wanted to come to the homecoming gathering with him. She said no. She said it gently but completely. "I don't want to be your interesting choice," she told him. "I don't want to be the girl you walked across the cafeteria to get, like a story you're telling about yourself." He opened his mouth. She shook her head. "I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm saying I need to know the difference. And I'm not sure yet." He went to homecoming. He stood in the right place with the right people and laughed at the right moments. And the whole evening, he felt like someone watching his own life through a window, present in body, somewhere else entirely in his mind. He left early. He told no one where he was going. He walked through the quiet neighborhood to Naomi Street, and he sat on the curb across from her house with no real plan. Her light was on upstairs. He could see the faint glow of it from where he sat. He did not knock on the door. He did not call. He sat there for a while in the dark, in the cool evening air, feeling something settle in his chest that he could not name but recognized, the feeling of being in exactly the right place. At 10 o'clock, her light turned off. He walked home. He told nobody. It was not a story he intended to perform. It was just something he did. A week later, Priya ran into Marcus at the corner shop near school. Marcus, who was trying to understand his best friend and had run out of other options, told her about the curb. About Daniel leaving the party early. About him sitting outside Naomi's house in the dark, alone, going home without knocking. Priya listened. She said nothing. She bought her drink and left. That evening, she called Naomi and told her. Naomi sat with the phone in her hand for a long time after the call ended. She opened her sketchbook. She drew a figure sitting on a curb at night, knees up, face turned toward a lit window. She drew it slowly and carefully, getting every line right. When it was finished, she looked at it for a long time. The figure in the drawing looked like someone waiting, not for a door to open, not for anything specific, just being near something that mattered to him. She had not expected that to feel like what it felt like. The next morning, she arrived at the library before him, which was unusual. She placed one of her sketches on his side of the table, face down at first, then she turned it over. It was a drawing of him from the English class on that first Tuesday. His head was half turned. His carefully maintained expression was already starting to come apart at the edges, already becoming something more honest. She had caught the exact moment before he put the mask back on. When he arrived and saw it, he stopped. He picked it up and looked at it in silence. He took a long time. She watched him from behind her novel. When did you draw this? He asked. That first day, she said. He looked up at her. You were paying attention that early? She gave him a small, direct look. I'm always paying attention, she said. I just don't usually show people what I see. He looked back at the drawing. Why are you showing me? She was quiet for a moment. Because, she said carefully, I think that's actually you. And I thought you should know someone saw it. He set the sketch down. Can I keep it? She hesitated. Then, yes. There was a rooftop access door at Westfield High that most students either did not know about or did not bother with. Naomi had discovered it freshman year and visited it regularly, in the early morning before the building filled up, or on quiet afternoons when she needed air. It was her private place. One afternoon, she brought Daniel there. They sat on the low wall at the edge, looking out over the neighborhood, the streets below quiet and ordinary. The sky was going orange at the edges. Neither of them spoke for a while, which was one of the things Daniel had slowly learned to be comfortable with, sitting in silence with Naomi and not feeling the need to fill it. Can I ask you something? He said eventually. She nodded. Before all this, before the library, before everything, were you ever going to let anyone in? Or was invisible the plan forever? She thought about the question honestly. I wasn't against letting people in, she said. I was waiting to see if being visible was worth the cost. He turned to look at her. Is it? She was quiet for a moment. I'm still deciding, she said. But she did not leave. She stayed while the sky went from orange to purple to a deep, soft dark. The city below them glittered. I used to think being liked and being known were the same thing, he said after a while. She shook her head slowly. They're almost the opposite, she said. He thought about that. Before you, he said, I don't think anyone at this school actually knew me. She looked at him steadily. I know, she said. It's a lot of responsibility. He looked at her, surprised. And then he laughed, a real, startled, genuine laugh that came out of nowhere, and she was smiling when it happened, which was something he had learned to pay close attention to, because her smiles were not given easily and they were never performed. They were just true. Things did not become perfect after that. The school did not suddenly become a warm and welcoming place. Social rules do not dissolve just because two people decide to ignore them. Some students were unkind. Some comments were made. Priya remained cautious about Daniel for several more weeks, watching him carefully, giving nothing away. Marcus took time to understand what was happening to his best friend, and then one afternoon, watching Daniel at practice, fully present, actually enjoying it rather than performing enjoyment, Marcus understood something and felt unexpectedly glad. Naomi was not suddenly popular, and she did not want to be. She still ate lunch in quiet corners sometimes. She still wore colors that did not demand attention. But she no longer moved through the hallway like someone trying not to exist. There was a small but real difference in the way she held herself, not louder, not more visible, just less hidden. The invisibility had been armor. She did not throw the armor away. She just stopped needing to wear it every minute of the day. Daniel stopped performing. It happened so gradually that nobody could point to the exact moment. He was still the kind of person who filled a room, that was simply who he was, and it did not disappear. But the version of himself that said the clever thing and laughed at the right moment and stood in exactly the right spot began to quiet down, and what remained was something his friends had not quite seen before, something more uncertain and more honest and, they found, more easy to actually be with. He started showing up to Naomi's art club showcase. He told no one. He stayed for the entire thing. Naomi spotted him near the back halfway through and said nothing, just kept walking, kept answering questions from the teacher about her work. Afterward, he found her near the exit. The one in the back left corner, he said. That's the best one in the room. She looked at him steadily. That one took me the longest, she said. He nodded. You can tell, he said. She was quiet for a moment. You actually looked, she said, not quite asking. I look at everything differently now, he said, and he meant it. The Monday morning 6 weeks after Daniel walked across the cafeteria began the way every Monday morning at Westfield High began, with noise, with the push of students through the front doors, with lockers and laughter and the smell of the building warming up for another week. Naomi walked in and moved through the hallway. Nobody parted for her. Nobody called her name. But she moved differently through the crowd, not invisible, not performing visibility either, just present. She opened her locker. She turned around. Daniel was leaning against the wall 2 lockers down, waiting. Not dramatically, not with any kind of announcement. Just waiting, the way you wait for someone you know will show up. They walked to homeroom together. Marcus appeared alongside Daniel, hands in his jacket pockets, easy and comfortable. Priya materialized beside Naomi, quiet and watchful and, if you looked closely enough, no longer quite so suspicious. For people moving through the same hallway, belonging to each other in a way that the school had no category for and no power over. Later that day, in the library, Naomi opened her sketchbook to a fresh page. She thought for a moment. Then she drew 2 figures walking side by side through a crowded hallway, not holding hands, not doing anything dramatic, just walking. Around them, the crowd was a blur of movement and noise. But the 2 figures in the center were steady and clear. Below the drawing, in her careful handwriting, she wrote a single sentence. It turns out being seen is survivable. It might even be necessary. She closed the sketchbook. She picked up her novel. Outside the library window, the school went on being exactly what it had always been, loud and social and full of rules nobody had written down but everyone obeyed. And inside the library, in the back corner by the window, 2 people sat at a small table and were, without any fuss at all, completely real with each other. Which was, in its quiet way, the most extraordinary thing that had happened in that building in years. End of story.